I'm Teresa Marie Lennon, and I want to talk today about coping with your feelings. Learning how to cope effectively with feelings is really important to self-esteem. Since self-esteem is basically about feelings, it's important to learn to cope with feelings. Feelings and the variety of them can be a lot to cope with, as a matter of fact. We go through myriads of feelings every day and every moment and everything. And as a child, I believed I was totally powerless over my feelings. I certainly couldn't stop crying on demand. Telling a child to stop crying is like telling a it's like trying to herd cats. It doesn't work really. However, I've since learned that coping with feelings is a lot like driving a boat on the water. You change the direction of your thoughts, you'll change the direction of your feelings. It just may take a little bit. Kind of like when you're driving that boat and you turn the boat. It takes a few seconds for the boat to change direction. There are some feelings that are extremely negative. There are some feelings that are negative. There are some feelings that are neutral. There are some feelings that are positive. And then there's love, which is a feeling and an action. And I believe that love is the only permanent feeling. Now, if abuse can kill love in a person, but it's a permanent kind of feeling. The rest of them are transitory, and feelings are not facts. They pass. They go away. Some of those feelings that are extremely negative are like regrets, shame, resentments. Usually, it involves living in the past. Those kind of feelings. And having bad feelings about stuff today that happened a long time ago. I made a commitment to live without regrets, and I live that way. And I rarely do things that I regret. I don't do or say things that I will regret later, as a general rule. I usually say what I mean. I believe listening to your heart is a good thing. Listening to your emotions is a good thing. I don't believe it's necessarily a good idea to follow them around. But I'm one of those people that's ruled by their head rather than their heart, and I believe that if you're ruled by your heart, you tend to react instead of respond a lot of the time. Our head is there to move us around, as the song once said. And you can use your mind to cope with your feelings effectively and pilot yourself around. We are responsible and not at fault for our own feelings, just like everybody else is. Everybody else is responsible for their own feelings. You aren't to blame for your feelings or someone else's feelings, so avoiding blaming yourself for feelings is a good idea. Nobody causes our feelings, and we do not cause them in others. Now, I think there are some exceptions to this. I think you can make people laugh. I think in some select cases, if you're very cautious about it, you could say, yeah, that person made me angry. But you have to be cautious with that kind of thinking. It's children, one of the benefits of maturity is we learn to cope with our feelings better. And people do not make us mad as a general rule. We make ourselves mad. Now, if you have a child and you see someone beating up your kid, well, yeah, that's going to make you mad, and it's not really your fault. I think in certain select cases, people can make us mad, but you have to be careful with those kind of judgments. Old feelings can stick around at times. I watched my parents growing up, and I learned the benefit of not bottling up anger and sticking feelings in a pressure cooker. It's really not very smart, because it explodes out later. We need to be assertive about our feelings, and at the very least talk to God or the Spirit about them. You don't need permission to talk about your feelings. If you're in a situation where people want you to ask permission to talk about your feelings, there's something wrong with the situation or the relationship. It's important to be honest about feelings too. Sometimes people talk about just the negative feelings in order to get people to do stuff for them. And that's not genuinely talking about your feelings. That's more like trying to manipulate people. There's a fine line there. But true strength equals vulnerability. To be vulnerable, you pretty much have to be clean and sober for the most part. Now, I don't have a problem with people drinking occasionally. But people who use substances and alcohol and things to cope with their feelings are not actually coping with their feelings. They're just sticking them in a pressure cooker. Truly strong people are vulnerable. And true strength is an inside job. The strong rely on stronger people in life. Truly strong people need stronger people around to help them out. It's good to notice where in your body your feelings are. Usually, if there's ambivalence, it's likely that it's a trouble spot or a situation that needs to be worked on, or something that needs to be thought about and analyzed and worked out. Some schools of thought say that analyzing your feelings is not necessarily a good thing, but I analyze my feelings a lot to figure out where they came from, because I used to take out anger on other people, and I don't do that anymore. I learned, part of the way that I learned not to do that anymore was to analyze the way I felt and why I felt that way. Like I said, our head is there to pilot us around. Detachment is allowing others to be. Just to be. You don't need to get too attached to any one idea, person, place, thing. It's good to be somewhat detached from other people's stuff. Like I've said before, making the world feel better is not up to you. We have to accept uncertainty and unpredictability in our relationships. People aren't always going to feel the way we expect them to. Stay away from toxic relationships that violate your rights. Practice saying no. It's better to be alone than in a bad relationship. It really is. Those are facts. It's better to be happy alone than unhappy with someone. You can, if you have toxic relationships in your family, you can find a new family if you have to. I did that. It works for me. I mentioned these before, resentment and shame you want to avoid feeling. You want to avoid those things. Those have to do with using our mind to feel worse. Shame is feeling like there's something essentially wrong with you, when usually there isn't. And resentment is hanging on to anger. Hatred is, it can be a very toxic emotion. Hatred is a natural emotion, but it should be dealt with immediately when you feel it. If you hang on to hatred, you're going to end up bitter, and that's not good. Forgiveness allows you to move on. Forgiving people for stuff is important. It allows you to heal. Sometimes it helps the other person to heal, but forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is about you. And forgiveness is easier when we realize forgiving others can be easier when you realize that we all make mistakes. Guilt is curable. It may take time. Forgiving yourself is crucial to getting over guilt. Sometimes when we feel guilty, we have earned it. There's a lot of freedom in not building up too much guilt. Some people think freedom is going out and doing whatever they want, no matter how destructive it is. But then there's guilt that goes along with that that's not freeing. So living a lifestyle that's relatively guilt-free is the freest way to be. We want to be free on the inside before we're free on the outside. It's more important to be free on the inside than it is to be free on the outside. We are responsible for our own behavior no matter how we feel. That was a hard lesson for me as a young person to learn. That I couldn't just act out in anger whenever I felt like it, because I always felt worse, or I broke something, or I burned a bridge or something. No matter what's going on inside, you are responsible for your own behavior. You can handle your own behavior. You don't have to act a certain way just because you feel a certain way. And it takes time to learn that. Kids tend to cope with their feelings the way that their parents cope with their feelings. Grief is a heavy emotion, and we all end up in grief sooner or later. Sooner or later, we all end up with a broken heart, or we lose somebody to death or something. Now, they say there are 5 stages to grieving. I took the 5 stages of grieving and made the acronym DADDY. Denial, anger, deal-making, depression, and yielding. It reminds me who to reach for when I'm feeling a lot of grief or a lot of pain, emotional pain. Sometimes life, or the devil, if you believe in the devil, I'm not going to get into that, gives us more than we can handle. They say that God doesn't give us more than we can handle, which is true. God does not. However, sometimes we bite off more than we can chew, or things happen that are too much to handle, and we cannot handle it alone. We need to reach for the Spirit to handle stuff. It's not God who gives us more than we can handle, but there are situations that are more than a person can handle that happen. It's okay to lose faith at times, but real faith can save your life. It may be difficult to do what God demands us to do in bad situations, but having faith in God and the Spirit can save your life. It's okay to drift away from your beliefs or be angry with God or whatever. God, the Spirit is the only house in the universe that can handle all the pain, all the anger, all the bitterness, all that stuff. God can handle it. Thank you.